Thanks very much for coming. I'm very pleased to be joined by Joseph Blasi, who is a professor at the School of Management and Labor Relations at Rutgers University. Nicole Lebrecht, who many centuries ago actually worked for me, right?
That's right.
But now is the corporate director of business development at PC Construction, formerly Pizzagalli Construction. Jim Feinson, who is president of Gardner's Supply, and Mary Steiger, founding owner of PT 360, physical therapy company here in Burlington. I'm going to make some brief remarks, and we'll give it over to Joseph and our other panelists today. Today we are discussing something to me that is just enormously important and enormously exciting, and I think we should all be proud of the progress that we have made here in the state of Vermont. The issue is the concept of workers coming together to own their own businesses by starting up an employee stock ownership plan or a worker-owned cooperative. And I am very pleased today to be joined by representatives of some of the best employee-owned businesses in the country who are right here in the state of Vermont. At a time when the gap between the very wealthy and everyone else in our country is growing wider and wider, when the incomes of millions of Americans have gone down in recent years as we see a shrinking of the middle class, it is time to start thinking about new business models. How do we create decent paying jobs? How do we empower working people? And I think that is exactly what we are talking about today. Vermont has been a national leader on the issue of employee ownership. Today there are more than 30 ESOPs in Vermont and about a half a dozen worker cooperatives. Nationally, there are more than 10,000 employee-owned businesses throughout the country, employing about 10 million Americans. As we will hear today, while companies throughout the country are hurting, many employee-owned businesses in Vermont are doing well and in many cases are thriving. Study after study has shown that employee ownership has been proven to increase the number of jobs, increase productivity, increase sales, and increase wages in the United States. And the bottom line here is not hard to understand. When employees have a stake in the future of their company, when they are involved in the decision-making of the company, when they help determine who gets what type of compensation, they are part of the system. They're not just a cog in the machine. They are an active part of how the company functions. And in my view, when you involve many people in that process, you're going to have a better end result. A lot of smart people out there who can contribute to the well-being of a company. You see absenteeism going down. You see productivity going up. So I think that what we are doing here in Vermont, and these companies will talk about that, could be a model for the United States of America. It already exists all over the country. We can do better. And today, along with Senator Leahy, and I want to thank Senator Leahy for his strong support of this concept, we're going to introduce legislation that will make it easier for companies to become worker-owned or ESOPs. So without further ado, let me introduce Joseph Blasi. Dr. Blasi is a professor at the School of Management and Labor Relations at Rutgers University and is an author on this subject and one of the more knowledgeable people in the country. Dr. Blasi, let me get you some mics here.
Thank you very much, Senator. I'd like to put the issue of worker ownership in a broader context. Wages since 1980 have been relatively flat for the middle class. We've been reading a lot in the press about the tremendous wealth inequality. At the time of the American Revolution, the English aristocracy owned 80% of all English land. We're getting to the point where most financial assets, most stock, most capital gains, most capital income is more than 80% concentrated in the top 20% of the population, and in some cases the top 10%. What worker ownership does is provide an opportunity for average middle-class workers, in addition to their wage, to have a capital income that they can use for the things that they need for their family. As Senator Sanders pointed out, we have thousands of examples, mostly in small businesses, of worker-owned firms in the United States. Typically, this happens when a small business person has built up his or her business and wants to sell the business to their employees. I think the Senator's two pieces of legislation will have a huge effect on spreading this concept throughout the United States. Creating worker ownership centers in the states from the Senator's first piece of legislation will allow all of the individual small businesses with employee ownership to help educate their peers in their state. And the Senator's idea of providing a bank facility to give financing to new worker-owned firms will allow counties throughout the United States that don't have a demonstration of this in action to have a demonstration project. So I strongly endorse the President's the Senator's two pieces of legislation. Excuse me, Senator. And I really do think that we can see some tremendous progress in the United States on these issues.
Thank you very much. Nicola Breck is the Corporate Director of Business Development at PC Construction, formerly Pizzicato Construction. Nicole, why don't you grab these mics now?
So I joined PC 6 years ago. It was formerly Pizzicato Construction. It was the first time I'd ever contemplated working for a private company. I'd always held public sector jobs before that. And the lure of employee ownership helped make my decision. As a family-owned company, the Pizzicato brothers worked very hard to build it, and they could have simply sold it out to one of the large out-of-state mega contractors. But they paused and decided that employee ownership route was right for them. It ensured that the jobs would stay in Vermont, employees would be offered continuity of both employment and the culture of the company, which I've learned is really important at PC and very important to me. As I am no longer the youngest up-and-comer in any company these days, I'm taken aback by the caliber of talented young people PC is able to attract, while continuing to retain the very best long-term employees. I think this is in part because of our employee ownership benefit and the true fact that you have a real impact on the future of the company, a great retirement plan, and every employee helps drive our annual business plan to success. Employee ownership at PC improves performance company-wide. If there's a better, more efficient way to build something, those suggestions are encouraged and incorporated and ultimately congratulated. From the carpenter, field laborer, project accountant, all the way to our CEO and president, there's an open door to leadership that encourages collaboration and recognizes the whole team's success. In PC, you can see every day how being an employee owner impacts what each of us does. We turn off the lights when we leave a conference room. We hold our breath all together on bid day to learn if we've won a new job. But personally, perhaps the most gratifying example for this happened last July for me. I'm in charge of construction sales in Vermont, and my team and I worked really, really hard to prepare, submit, and ultimately win the Waterbury State Office Complex project, which is the largest construction project ever undertaken by the state of Vermont. I received calls, emails, and folks from across the company, not congratulating me on my win, but thanking me for my role in securing that work and helping make 2013 a very good year for us. One of my favorite superintendents said, when the company does well, we get to toast ourselves. So cheers.
Okay. Jim Feinson is the president of Gardner Supply right here in the Intervale. That's Jim.
Thank you, Senator. I'm Jim Feinson. I'm president of Gardner Supply, and I'm joined today by Trey Crady, who's one of our fellow employee owners, and serves as a member of our Employee Ownership Committee. Gardner Supply was founded in 1983 by Will Rapp, and in 1987 he started the company on the path to employee ownership. But it was only about 4 years ago, in 2010, when he decided to sell the remainder of his shares for ownership succession to our employee stock ownership plan, and we very proudly became 100% employee owned. I can safely say that without employee ownership, Gardner Supply and our approximately 225 year-round positions would no longer be a Vermont-based company. And in fact, some of those positions in areas like customer service and manufacturing may no longer be in this country. It really is employee ownership and the legislation that encourages employee owners, encourages founders and owners to sell their companies to the employees that really help retain these jobs in Vermont. And these are high-quality, well-paying jobs in areas like product development, marketing, e-commerce, manufacturing, graphic design, and so forth. In addition, I think in a time when there is increasing scrutiny on the disparity in incomes between the nation's wealthiest individuals and the incomes of America's working class, at Gardner Supply, we share ownership and wealth with all our employees. They're able to build healthy retirement accounts, and they're able to participate and share in the value of the increasing value of the company that they are helping create. And so in this way, employee ownership is a tremendous economic development asset. It's a win for our company, a win for our employees, a win for our Vermont community, and a win for the nation. And that's why we so enthusiastically support the proposed legislation from Senator Sanders.
Jim, thanks very much. Mary Steiger is the founding owner of PT360. Mary, why don't you grab the mics here?
Thank you, Senator. I am one of the original founding owners of PT360. We're the first employee-owned physical therapy cooperative on the East Coast. We have 12 owners today and 13 employees. We were a startup co-op from the ground up. So we formulated our cooperative in 2011. We have 3 locations right now, and we just had our first employee transition to ownership. So we are very excited. The system has finally come full circle. Every person that we hire as an employee, we look to them to join us as an owner. We chose the business model of the cooperative for many reasons. I think the first being our tagline at PT360 is better together. We are better together as a group. We are better together with our patients. We are better together with our colleagues. We are one share, one vote. We make all decisions together. I will say it has to be a majority, so not everyone wins every time, but to get 12 people to decide on anything can be challenging sometimes. But we chose that cooperative model because we could do business better than anyone else, we thought. Secondly, we chose the cooperative model for its sustainability. We have employees and owners who are close to retirement, and we have employees and potential owners who are new graduates. So as we, the older group, start to look at retirement, we will be replaced with owners that will be coming in on the ground floor. So there's a great deal of retention in our field in the cooperative model. And thirdly, I think we chose it for the community service aspect. We all owners, we all serve on a non-profit board in Chittenden County. We sponsor a lot of events for some of our patrons. And secondly, we were proactive in forming the Green Mountain Cooperative Alliance, which is very exciting. There's about 6 or 7 co-ops in the state of Vermont that have formed this alliance, and we formed it for 2 reasons. Number one, to get the word out about employee ownership and the cooperative model, and secondly, to work with one another to help in the cooperative culture amongst our businesses. So we also support all of the legislation that Senator Sanders is putting forth.
Okay. Mary, thank you very much. Look, bottom line is, this is a very exciting concept. It empowers working people. It improves the economy. It makes sure that the jobs that we create stay here in the United States of America and don't go to China or Vietnam or elsewhere. It empowers workers in the sense that instead of being cogs in a machine, they can have control over the workplaces in which they spend at least 8 hours a day. So our job is to see if we can expand a concept which is doing very, very well in the state of Vermont, to provide some financial support for those owners, such as in the Pizzigalli case, people who built a business who then decided they wanted to leave it to their employees. I am very, very excited about the work being done here in the state of Vermont, and this is a vision that I hope will catch on throughout our country. Okay, any questions on the issue?
We've heard a lot about the benefits to employees and the businesses. Can you or someone speak to, kind of from the consumer angle, what changes for a consumer when a business becomes employee?
Okay, I'll let one of the, Nicole or Jim, Mary, do you want to take a shot at that?
I know for us, every single time a patient walks in the door, for the most part, they are treated by an owner. From the front desk person who's scheduling their appointments, to the professional physical therapist who's conducting their treatment, to the billing person who's billing their insurance company, they're being treated by someone that's an owner of the business.
Which means that the quality, everything of the work will be better.
Correct.
Yes, people have a stake in the game.
Absolutely.
Jim, did you want to say a few words on
Yeah, I
that?
think
Oh, well,
sometimes,
it's the tree in the forest.
Yeah.
You talk, no one hears you.
yeah. Very similar. Whether you're speaking with one of our employees on the phone or walking to one of our garden centers in Burlington or Williston, for the most part, you're dealing with an employee owner. They care, they want to provide great service, they want to go above and beyond, and you know that the dollars that you're spending are going right back into the community in terms of increasing the prosperity of our employee owners, which they then recycle into our economy.
Okay, Nicole, do you want to comment on what it means to a consumer in the...
I think a great example from the construction world is the issue of workplace safety. So we hold safety in the highest regard at PC. That keeps insurance rates down. That translates to the price of our construction projects being lower across the board. So that's one example of laborers in the field who've learned that the safer they work, the more awards they win for safety. It keeps the whole price down, and we can turn that around to our consumers, get more work.
So worker safety equates to lower costs for...
That's exactly right.
Gotcha.
And that's all part of the ownership culture.
Okay, other questions on the issue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the culture of ownership, to some extent, it flies in the face of the mythology or culture of the American dream of selling out to a corporate god and making it really, really, really big. I mean, this is what most of us grew up with at some point, right? Is this just no longer the American dream, or do you guys have a new one in mind?
I don't know. That's a great question. Let's start with Nicole, because it's. I would say Pizzagalli is as good an example of this as any. Nicole will correct me if I'm wrong here, but these guys for decades built a business, a very
55 years.
successful business. By the way, way in the early 1970s. None of you are old enough to remember this. I had some problems with Pizzagalli in the business of breaking unions in the area, but. They built a very profitable and successful business. I assume they had the opportunity to sell that business to some mega corporation and make a fortune, right?
Absolutely.
Right, why don't you talk about that?
They were approached by several large corporations when it was time for the three Pizzagalli brothers to retire, but looked at the entire workforce, both in Vermont and up and down the East Coast, and said, we'd really like to continue this sense of ownership that was sort of part of the culture to begin with and turn it over. So they did a lot of research, spent a lot of time figuring out how it could happen, and over the course of about 7 years, the company became 100% employee-owned. There's no Pizzagalli brothers involved in the construction company anymore, and we're 58 years old now.
All right, well, Joe, that's a good answer. But that's a really good...
It must have been tempting for those guys.
I can't speak for them.
Just why don't you get
I want to interject here. I think there's some evidence on this. In a lot of the cases, and I think most of the cases where small businessmen and women sell to the employees, they are getting a competitive bid. And it's also important to understand, family business people, men and women, are close to their employees. They're not just in it for the money. They want to see that business go on. They want to see it contribute to the community. That's another part of it. They're just not out for the buck, but they are getting very competitive bids. This is not philanthropy. That's very clear about that.
Okay, and let me just add something to that, which I think is important. If you're somebody who starts with nothing and you build a family business into a successful business, and you make money along the way. But over the years, you develop a relationship with the people who help make your business a success, your employees. I think for many owners, they would, everything being equal, like to see that business continue in that same community with those same employees, if they can get a decent return on their investment if they could sell their business for a decent amount of money. So I think, I suspect that there are many businessmen all over this country if their only option is to sell it to some mega corporation who may at some point shut it down, move it someplace else, that does not make them happy. So I think we're giving people another opportunity and another business model to keep the businesses that they grew in their own community and to show respect to the employees who help make that business a success. Okay, all right.
Senator, question on a different topic. I understand that the VA legislation that you're introducing either today or tomorrow is an evolution of what you introduced in February, and which did not pass at that time. I'm wondering if you can kind of describe the chief differences and.
I've got some. If you need to, Paul, I have some paper on it. The major difference is that right now we deal with the immediate crises within the VA, and that is the ability to get in a very rapid way get rid of incompetent management. Also to make sure that we are able to hire the doctors and the nurses that we need around the country in those communities where there are long waiting lines. Make sure that we begin to address within the VA the very serious problem, as it is in the nation, of lack of primary health care doctors and some other issues as well. So in a sense, the difference between this bill and the previous bill is that we're addressing some of the immediate concerns within the VA.
And given the scandal surrounding the VA right now, do you think that that will make it easier to pass?
I don't want to speculate. All I can tell you is I'll be on a plane at 12 o'clock, and that's the issue I'll work on. It doesn't matter what I think may or may not happen. What will happen, will happen. And obviously, what I do hope is that given the fact that we have 6.5 million veterans utilizing the VA, and given the fact that in many parts of the country the quality of care that veterans are getting is very, very good, what I hope very much is that Congress can overcome the tendency to politicize everything, and in this case not make veterans into political footballs, but in fact work together to address the problems of the VA on behalf of the veterans of this country.
Just lastly,
Okay.
Would you be able to describe or tell us if you have any particular candidates in mind to replace General Shinseki?
No, you can't do that. Okay, great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nice to meet you,
Good,
Senator.
nice to see you.